The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
On Politics Now, Nevada's primary election night. We'll break down all the races, including the matchup for governor. The top law enforcement officer will look at both contentious races to become Nevada's new attorney general. Plus, running our cities. We look at the mayoral contests and one that's going to November.
You're watching Politics Now with John Langler on 8 News Now.
Thank you very much for joining us. The primary election is, for the most part, over, and now we have a clear picture of the battle for November and the general election. So let's get into some results right now, starting with the race for governor. In the Republican primary, not much of a contest here. Incumbent Joe Lombardo earned a resounding win. He earned more than 90% of the vote. Of course, the main battle was on the Democratic side. Attorney General Aaron Ford is heading to the general election. He beat Washoe County Commissioner Alexis Hill with about 2/3 of the vote. We spoke with Lombardo and Ford about the race.
Tonight is the beginning of the end of this failed Lombardo-Trump economy. Tonight, we say no más. No more failed leadership in Carson City that lets jobs disappear while prices are soaring.
We've done such great work for all Nevadans. It has nothing to do with which party you represent. It represents Nevadans. We've made significant progress in all those aspects. The economy, jobs, education, healthcare, public safety, and we're going to continue to do that as we move forward.
Perhaps the most contentious primary battle was for Attorney General. Both the Democratic and the Republican races featured lots of money and lots of accusations. On the Democratic side, notably, State Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro earned a hard-fought victory. As you can see on your screen there, the numbers, as she beat State Treasurer Zach Conine. Cannizzaro faces Republican Adriana Guzman-Freilich in November. Guzman-Freilich is the former chair of Nevada's Cannabis Compliance Board. She beat Danny Tarkanian. We spoke with Tarkanian after the results came in.
We don't have a U.S. Senator on the ballot, so that's going to bring down some of the turnout. It only happens once every 12 years or something. There'll be a good turnout in general election because there's going to be very, very important races on the ballot, primarily the governor's race. It's going to bring people to the polls. Primaries are hard.
Guzman-Freilich was endorsed by President Donald Trump. On Wednesday, meanwhile, Democrats held a press conference featuring the top of their ticket. There you see Mr. Ford. There you see Sandra Jauregui running for lieutenant governor and Nicole Cannizzaro. One main theme from Democrats in Nevada, tying Republican candidates to President Donald Trump.
I think at the end of the day, what you've heard from this entire slate is that Nevadans are having a tough time, right? Corporations are buying up houses. People can't afford to live in them. People are having a hard time buying groceries and gas. We've all been concerned with that.
Democrats attacked Governor Lombardo on a number of topics. Party leaders think he's most vulnerable on the economy. The governor, though, points out 100,000 jobs have been created during his term. One race where Republicans are vulnerable, though, is Secretary of State. In that primary, former Assemblyman Jim Marchant holds about a 3,000 vote lead right now. He's beating Governor Lombardo and President Trump-endorsed Reno businesswoman Shirley Fulkins Roberts. That winner faces the Democratic incumbent Cisco Aguilar. Marchant, you've heard it before, he has repeatedly said Nevada elections have been stolen, including the 2020 presidential race. He was also behind an effort to get counties to replace electronic voting machines with just paper ballots. Marchant believes all voters should re-register. Now let's look at the local races in the primary. We start in Henderson. Of course, these are all nonpartisan contests. The top two candidates go on to the general election unless one gets more than 50% of the vote. Let's start in Henderson City Council Ward 3. Jennifer Atlas leads embattled incumbent Carrie Cox for that seat. Annette Dawson-Owens is still a relatively close third place, but it appears that Cox and Atlas will move on. Now to the mayoral race. Incumbent Michelle Romero is flirting with that 50% mark and still votes coming in that she may still have to go to a runoff in November, but she does lead former Police Chief Holly Chadwick. 8 News Now's Jessamine Wolk spoke with the Henderson candidates on election night.
I'm at Mayor Michelle Romero's watch party, and the room erupted into applause as those preliminary results began to roll in. I spoke with her moments after it showed her in the lead, and she tells me she's cautiously optimistic.
This election has been a little bit more difficult. There were more people in the race. There were people that were actively campaigning, and that didn't happen too much last time. So we had to work very hard to get here.
Romero is seeking a second term as Henderson's mayor in a 5-candidate race. Her top challenger is former Henderson Police Chief Holly Chadwick, who entered the race after being fired by the city last year. Chadwick's team tells us she will speak with us once more results are released. Meanwhile, another closely watched race is playing out in Ward 3. Councilwoman Carrie Cox is seeking re-election against Jennifer Atlas and Annette Dawson-Owens. Cox has faced controversy during her first term, including a felony indictment over allegations she secretly recorded a fellow council member. Cox denies any wrongdoing and has said the case is part of an effort to remove her from office. Earlier today, we spoke with both Cox and Dawson-Owens as voters cast their final ballots.
We're out here for the residents, for the businesses, for everybody to know I show up. I'm going to continue to show up for them.
I'm feeling great today. I'm so happy that it's election day. I'm so grateful for all the endorsements that I've received and all the support in this campaign.
Annette Dawson-Owens has the endorsement of Mayor Michelle Romero. Owens is on the Nevada Board of Education. Meanwhile, Atlas is a former hospitality worker who ran for Nevada State Senate in 2024 but lost. We've been in contact with Atlas as well, and she tells us she will consider interviewing once those results are in. Reporting from Henderson, Jessamine Wolk, 8 News Now.
The battle for North Las Vegas mayor will go to November. Not a huge surprise here. Right now, State Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno leads City Councilman Scott Black by just about 4 percentage points, a very close race. 8 News Now reporter James Schaefer stopped by both of the North Las Vegas mayoral candidates' watch parties.
Tacos, burgers, and ballots. 2 North Las Vegas area leaders having their watch parties in the race for mayor.
A great mayor, a very asset to the North Las Vegas. Again, he can do better, make things better than what they are right now.
Some supporters already calling him mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Scott Black at My Garage, surrounded by burgers and supporters following an endorsement from the current mayor.
We've been lockstep when it comes to the big decisions to keep North Las Vegas propelling forward. And so I just think we're going to stay the course. We have so many things in the works: development, growth, investment.
Then at Danielle Monroe Moreno's watch party at Cerveza, supporters behind the 5-term assembly member and state Democratic chair.
She's not the type of person to say, like, no, we don't want young people at the table, or no, we don't want a diverse community. She is someone that brings people in.
We asked Monroe Moreno about that mayoral endorsement for her opponent, asking if this makes her an outsider.
Whether I'm considered an outsider, I don't know. I'm just a citizen that's ready to step into a different leadership position of service, to be of service to my community, with or without the mayor's endorsement.
Now, both candidates have led issue-based campaigns focusing on the growth of North Las Vegas and the security concerns that come with it. Reporting James Schaefer, 8 News Now.
The results should be finalized in those local races at the next city council meetings. Another key local battle is the fight for Clark County Commission. It's District F, a lot of the Southwest Valley. It's currently held by Democrat Justin Jones, but he's not running for re-election. In the Democratic primary, Chinatown advocate Minja Yan advances to the general election. As you see on your screen there, Mindy Lloyd finished a close second. The real battle, though, is on the Republican side. In a very contentious primary, Assemblywoman Heidi Kasama moves on to the general election. She beat businessman Albert Mack. In the state assembly, incumbent Democrat Howard Watts could lose his primary. Right now, he's about 43 votes behind challenger Miguel Davila for District 15. Watts chairs the Natural Resources Committee. Davila is an urban planner supported by large labor unions. No Republicans are running in this race, so the winner of the Democratic primary has the seat. In a contested Democratic primary for Assembly District 41, Vinnie Spotlesson leads Gabriella Wyatt. Spotlesson is an environmentalist who has worked for groups like the Sierra Club. He will face Kelly Chapman in the general election for District 41. She has the governor's endorsement. In State Senate District 8, longtime Republican George Harris leads former Metro Assistant Sheriff Lav Chavez. Harris owns the Alien Research Center in Rachel. He faces the Democratic incumbent Marilyn Dondero Loop. Ballot curing is still going on, of course, from the primary. Voters have until June 15th to verify their signatures. The state will canvass election results in about a month, and we have the latest election results and other key races at 8newsnow.com. In California's gubernatorial race, meanwhile, a Republican has qualified for the November general election. California's primary, as you may know, sends the top two candidates to the general election, no matter the party. Steve Hilton will face Democrat Javier Becerra in November. Becerra is promising to cement the state's status as a stronghold of liberal policies. Hilton says he'll dramatically reverse course. In Maine, Republican moderate Susan Collins is facing a challenge now from that man. That is Democrat Graham Plattner. Plattner was put forward by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders for this race, but he's attracted a lot of controversy. He has a Nazi Totenkopf tattoo, and in several recent national media stories, his ex-girlfriends have claimed he was abusive. Plattner says he's learned from his mistakes. Next here on Politics Now, looking for fraud, why Nevada's Attorney General is against a state effort to crack down in one industry. Plus, we break down the congressional primary races on Election Day. We're back after this.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Back to the primaries and the races for Congress. Republicans, as you know, are pushing to flip at least one of Nevada's 3 Democratic seats. Democrats, meanwhile, hope to flip the state's only Republican seat. In Congressional District 1, Republican State Senator Carrie Buck easily won her Republican primary. She'll face Democratic incumbent Congresswoman Dina Titus in the general election. Republicans are closely watching the Congressional District 3 battle. Marty O'Donnell won that GOP primary. He's a video game composer endorsed by both Governor Lombardo and President Trump. O'Donnell faces Democrat incumbent Susie Lee in November. In Congressional District 4, rancher Cody Whipple took the Republican primary for Congress. He hopes to unseat the incumbent Democrat Stephen Horsford. Nevada's only Republican congressional seat is District 2 up north. It's held by the retiring Mark Amadei. Dave Flippo won that primary. He was endorsed by President Trump. He hasn't really lived in that district very long, and in fact, he previously ran for Congressional District 4. Governor Lombardo, Amadei, and most state Republicans endorsed former state lawmaker James Settlemeyer for that seat. The Democratic candidate in CD2 is former state Assemblywoman Teresa Benitez Thompson, who won that primary. In a long social media post after the election, Congressman Amadei said his seat is up for grabs now for the first time. He wrote, quote, "My long-standing respect for the voters has not changed. It is my hope that the values and culture that built our original Nevada Congressional District 2 will still have a strong voice in the U.S. House of Representatives." A long-standing nonprofit hospice here in the Valley is applauding Nevada's recent decision to fight back against Medicaid fraud. Governor Joe Lombardo and the Nevada Health Authority put a 6-month moratorium on any new hospice or Medicaid applications. As 8 News Now reporter Erin Arellano explains, first, the state wants to review the current ones.
We were seeing a lot of referrals to Nathan Adelson Hospice from these hospices where patients weren't seeing a nurse.
Rubel says the statewide pause on new licenses for hospices and home health care announced by Governor Joe Lombardo and the Nevada Health Authority last week addresses problems she's seen for years.
They weren't getting their medications. And so as we were starting to see those patients transfer from one hospice to Nathan Adelson, we just started asking some questions of the patients and families and just uncovering some bad practices.
She says issues started popping up around 5 years ago, the same time California and other neighboring states issued similar pauses on hospice licenses.
That California moratorium started pushing people who wanted to open up a hospice into Nevada.
The state's moratorium comes after the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced a nationwide crackdown on suspected fraud among hospices and home health providers, listing Nevada as one of the states with elevated fraud risk.
You know, in Clark County alone, we were tracking about 300 hospice companies, and that's just really a lot.
But the decision is not supported by everyone one. Attorney General Aaron Ford, a Democratic candidate for governor who has secured convictions against Medicaid fraudsters in the state, slams the other half of this problem, pausing new Medicaid enrollments, claiming Governor Lombardo provides no evidence freezing Medicaid will fix this issue.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So, we wanted a temporary pause, which we feel 6 months really is a temporary pause, just so that the state could wrap their arms around what's going on.
That was Erin Ariana reporting. Nathan Adelson Hospice was a driving force behind a hospice patient's Bill of Rights passed in last year's legislature. Next on Politics Now, a new lease on life. The new effort to keep Primm from becoming a ghost town.
You're watching Politics Now.
A failing grade for Nevada children. It comes from a new study into overall childhood well-being. The Ann E. Casey Foundation's Kids Count report says Nevada ranked 46th. It shows our state's near the bottom in almost every indicator. That includes education, health, and economics.
Nationally, it's I think a challenge that a lot of states are experiencing. And I also just want to touch on that I think COVID-19 plays a big role, and students were forced to be home.
Data from Nevada's Department of Education falls in line with the Kids Count. The state's report card shows reading and math scores are dropping within CCSD and have done for the last 6 years. Last month, CCSD Superintendent Joan Ebert laid out a 5-year plan to try and improve student success. In less than a month, the town of Primm was supposed to shut down. Operators of the only remaining casino, the apartment complex, the other businesses said there is no business to be had. This week, though, 2 famous Nevada families said they were teaming up to save the town, the Primms and the Herbsts. They say they'll take over operations. I spoke with Corey Clementson, the grandson of town founder Ernie Primm.
The first and foremost issue for us at hand was the laying off of in excess of 300 Nevadans on the 4th of July in excessive heat. And many of them have families, so the total is probably closer to 500 people that would be displaced on 4th of July, which we just thought that date was awful. The way it was being handled was just not something that was really the family could even remotely accept. And, finding an operator, getting the business stabilized, getting somebody who has a shared vision in Primm, and to start reinvesting back into the town, which clearly our family hasn't operated these hotel casinos in 30 years. So a lot of what we've seen is just maybe lack of care along the way. And now we've got somebody that really believes in Primm with the Terribles Gaming Group.
The details of the deal, is there a price tag here? Sure. I assume, help me understand how this transition is taking place.
C Capital is we've terminated their lease, they're out. And so basically what we're at now is a stage with our lawyers are going to be working with Gaming Control Board, or communicating with them. Herbst will have its group obviously working with Gaming Control to get everything that they need to be approved by the board. Again, I haven't spoken directly to the Gaming Control Board Chair Mike Dreitzer, but we have legal counsel that is in regular contact with them. And Herbst, I'm sure, is moving in that direction. And what we're told is that probably in less than a few weeks, there's going to be a hearing, and to make sure that we don't have 300 plus Nevadans being displaced on the 4th of July and out of work. Everybody has been working around the clock to prevent that from happening.
As someone who grew up in Las Vegas, I remember going down and there were the shops down there. It wasn't just the resorts, of course. There was all the other things that were there, the lotto store. What do you envision as a way to sort of resuscitate, especially the outlet shops? Because right now it's basically empty except for one place. Do you have a vision at this point for what could be done down there to bring it back?
Well, we're getting a lot of different ideas, partly with the new relationship and the freedom of getting these things back without getting into the legal, weeds, so to speak. It allows us a far more flexibility to do things with them all. And I think anytime you don't want to get ahead of your operator who might have idea X, and you want to support that. There are clearly people out there that are always trying to take advantage of a situation when they read things in the paper and want to say, I've got an idea for an industrial something. I've got an idea for a great event. I mean, the list is off the charts of the amount of phone calls that we get or letters or emails of they can fix everything. But in reality, when you have a qualified group you're working with, if you take your time and you figure out a strategy that makes sense, it'll lead you down the right road business-wise to make the best educated decision you can and set Primm up long-term for success. We're going to be far more involved as a family than we were for the last 30 years. We will not be just any, the legal details without getting specifics are going to require us to be involved and informed. And hopefully, and again, no guarantees, when we dig ourselves out of the hole that we believe has been created in the last 15 years, that we'll be on to better pastures for everybody. And over time, I think you're going to see a much better Primm than you have in a long time. And that's our hope and our goal.
I get the feeling you and the family have been biting your tongue about Z Capital and Prima Donna for a while now.
Absolutely. I won't say anything more, but it's you see the smile on my face.
And again, the Herbst family, the Primms are working with, they're involved in the Terribles gas stations you see all over the area. For more coverage of Primm and its future, just go over to 8newsnow.com. Next on Politics Now, Old Glory under repairs, why Hoover Dam's enormous American flag was taken down.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
A giant American flag draped over Hoover Dam is now getting patched up. Dam staff say it was torn by high winds. You remember the flag made its debut. There was a ceremony on Memorial Day for the America 250 celebrations. For now, the nightly light show at the dam will continue, but the flag is getting fixed up. Bureau of Reclamation hopes to have it back up before the 4th of July. Just need a lot of sewing needles and thread to get it back where it's supposed to be. That'll do it for us here on this week's edition of Politics Now. For the latest election news and the latest results, go to 8newsnow.com as we watch that process from the primary. We're back with you right here next week. Take care.